I rejected every billionaire on the list for a quiet husband. Then his phone ruined my life. You know that moment when you're so utterly fed up, so done, that you just think the most outrageous, unfiltered thing imaginable? I did that. And my husband, the man I swore to spend forever with, actually heard it.
Every
Single word. That, my friends, is how my quiet, arranged marriage turned into an all-out war, and it all started because of a ringing phone and a piece of cake. My family, my family decided I needed a husband from their approved list of rich heirs. Like I was choosing a formal dress for a funeral, not a life partner. You wouldn't believe the options. There was the CEO with his ex's name still tattooed on his ribs. He claimed it stood for discipline. Asked if his ex was named Discipline, and he said I had a difficult sense of humor. I told him his ribcage had unresolved paperwork. Hard pass. Then the banker with 3 fiancés in 3 different cities. He called it diversification. I called it evidence. Next, the playboy who genuinely asked if marriage had a flexible subscription plan. There was even a shipping heir who cried because a woman used the yacht he bought her for a party with another man. And don't even get me started on the guy who cried during our introduction because his first love liked another man's dog. Not the man, the dog. I respected the dog's victory, but not enough to marry nearby. And then there was Damian Reed. Elegant. Polite.
calm.
He arrived in a navy suit, thanked my aunt for tea, actually caught a collapsing floral arrangement before it hit my mother, steered a drunk uncle away from the ambassador, and most importantly, he listened when I spoke. No wandering eyes, no old tattoos, no multiple fiancés, no emotional yachts. Just calm.
Clean.
Scandal-free. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. I thought I was lucky. I married him in a beautiful garden ceremony, expecting a stable, polite distance. At first, it was soft. Separate bedrooms, yes, because this whole thing started as an agreement, not some fiery romance. But he never forced closeness. He never mocked my quiet nature. He cooked for my birthday because I'd once mumbled that all those expensive family cakes tasted like sugar-wearing debt. He'd wait while I got my nails done, pretending the salon gossip didn't amuse him. We'd visit museums, hold hands in front of statues, and watch terrible soap operas where he'd claim to hate them but remember every character's secret child. Slowly, stupidly, dangerously, I actually started falling for him. And then the calls started. They began to swallow our marriage whole. The first almost romantic night, I appeared at his bedroom door in a black nightgown I'd spent 40 minutes pretending I bought for myself. Damian froze. It was promising. Then his phone rang. Brandon's assistant on the line, saying Brandon was drunk on a private terrace, crying because his ex had liked someone else's vacation photo. Damian left. I stood in the hallway, wrapped in silk and pure humiliation. I had been defeated by a grown man with Instagram pain. Next was the weekend getaway. Private mountain villa. Snow outside. Fireplace lit. Wine breathing. My husband looking at me like he might finally forget how incredibly responsible he was. And then Nathaniel Cross called. His apology fireworks had launched towards his ex's mother's greenhouse instead of the sky. Damian spent 2 hours coordinating firefighters, florists, and an apology letter that somehow didn't include the phrase, "Technically, your orchid started it." I sat by the fireplace alone. I'd married a man whose love language was crisis logistics for idiots. Another time, at a museum, we were holding hands in front of a marble statue. Holding hands. A rare, historical event.
His phone rang.
Tristan Ovali's runway model girlfriend refused to walk because the lighting betrayed her cheekbones. Then let her cheekbones negotiate, I muttered. Damian apologized and left. I stayed with the statue. The statue, honestly, had better availability. The rooftop dinner was my last attempt at being mature. Candles, white roses, a violinist far enough away not to become a witness. Damian wore a black shirt, sleeves rolled to the wrist, looking too handsome for a man whose phone had ruined more evenings than bad weather. I told myself I was calm. Then he smiled. Illegal. Someone arrest the lighting. His eyes flickered. Before I could investigate, his phone rang. Brandon. I said, do not answer. It may be urgent. Do not call it urgent, I snapped. Unless someone is on fire, giving birth, or being attacked by swans. Wonderful. I thought to myself, I'm losing my husband to a wine cellar hostage situation with appetizers. Damian looked guilty before he moved. Scarlett, I can coordinate by phone. How romantic, I replied. Shall I ask the waiter for a third plate for the hostage? He closed his eyes. I'm sorry. And that was the problem. He was always sorry. And he always answered. My pasta cooled. When he finally hung up, he looked at me. I didn't leave. I smiled, because honesty would have ruined my makeup. No, you just brought them with you.
He reached for my hand.
I picked up my glass instead. The hurt in his eyes lasted 1 second. Good. Let one of us finally notice something. For months, I told myself he was kind, responsible, needed. I told myself this was his work, his world. But somewhere between the cake bride, the greenhouse fireworks, the dessert table groom, the grandmother with a microphone, and the swan in the ballroom, I realized something deeply unromantic. My husband had office hours for other people's stupidity, and I had become the quiet woman waiting across the hall. Now, on our first anniversary, right as he had finally started unbuttoning his shirt, his phone rang again. I closed my eyes.
No.
Not again. It was Brandon's assistant. Damian, please. You have to come. Brandon proposed to his ex. The bride locked herself inside the cake, and the father-in-law is threatening to buy the church. That was it. I snatched the phone from his hand. Listen carefully, I said, my voice dangerously calm. If the bride is inside the cake, call a pastry chef. If the father-in-law is buying churches, call an accountant. And inside my head, I added, my husband is closed tonight due to marriage. Then Damian froze. He looked at me like I had spoken out loud. Only I hadn't said that part. I had only thought it. The bedroom became so quiet, I could hear the silk tie sliding from his collar to the floor. Damian Reed, the calmest man in 5 social circles and 3 emergency contact lists, stared at me with his shirt half open, one sleeve rolled back, and the face of a man who had just discovered his wife's thoughts had unlocked premium audio. Scarlett, he said, his voice careful, did you just think I was closed due to marriage? I stared back.
No.
Oh no. Either I had accidentally said that last part out loud, or my husband had developed premium surveillance features. Damian nearly dropped his phone. The assistant on the line was still screaming, Sir, the bride is still inside the cake. I grabbed the phone again. Tell the bride to eat her way out. It builds character. Damian choked. The assistant gasped. Madam. Yes, madam. I snarled. The woman who has lost 7 date nights for dinners. 1 museum weekend. 2 almost kisses. And now 1 anniversary to rich men who cannot manage their feelings without technical support. The assistant went silent. I handed the phone back to Damian. He looked at me. I looked at him. He looked at the phone. The phone looked guilty. He still hesitated. Because Damian had spent years believing responsibility meant running toward every crisis, even when the crisis wore a tuxedo and had 3 assistants who should have been doing their jobs. I folded my arms. If you leave tonight, do not talk to me about us tomorrow. Your friends can keep custody of your evenings. Go ahead, Saint Damian. May your halo come with a charger, because your wife is done worshipping customer service. His eyes widened. Just a little, but I saw it. Did you just call me Saint Damian? My heart stopped, then restarted out of pure rage. I said you are about to make a bad decision. I pointed at him. You thought Saint Damian. You are not allowed to argue with thoughts. They were in private storage. The phone buzzed again. Another call, then another. The screen lit up with Brandon Cole, then Nathaniel Cross, then Tristan Hayes. Of course, the emergency toddlers had gathered. Damian looked at the screen, then at me. Then, very slowly, he powered the phone off. Not silent. Off. He opened the top drawer of the bedside table, placed the phone inside, closed the drawer, and stood there like a man waiting for applause from both his wife and the gods of finally having a spine. I am not going. My mouth opened. Nothing came out.
Great.
Now I'm attracted to basic boundaries. The bar was in hell, and he brought a ladder. Damian smiled. I narrowed my eyes. Why are you smiling? No reason. Your face has reasons. It's trying not to. You're hearing me. I'm beginning to suspect that that is illegal. I don't know which law covers this, but I will find one. He lifted both hands, calm, but not as calm as usual. I'm not doing it on purpose. That's exactly what a man with suspicious access would say. Scarlet, don't scarlet me while your ears are trespassing. His mouth twitched. I hated that his mouth did that. I also hated that his shirt remained half open because I was trying to be furious with dignity, and his collarbone was acting like a paid distraction. Don't look at his hands. Don't look at his hands. I looked. I am weak.
His gaze dropped to his hands.
Then back to me. I'm trying very hard not to react to the thought you just had. I grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. He caught it. Of course he caught it. Luxury event fixers probably trained for airborne linens. Out, I said. His face fell. Not much. Just enough. Out of my head, Damian. Not the room. The room can stay supervised. He looked at the bed, then at me, then at the drawer holding his dead phone. For one ridiculous second, neither of us moved. The anniversary candles flickered beside the tray of chocolate strawberries he had arranged himself. The room smelled faintly of sandalwood, rain, and the dinner I had waited through while trying not to hope too much. My husband stood in front of me, finally present, finally choosing not to run, and somehow able to hear that I wanted to strangle his phone and kiss him in the same breath. It was unfair. I had chosen him because he was supposed to be safe. That was the whole point. Damian sat beside me on the bed, the pillow between us like a peace treaty. How long has it been this bad? He asked. I looked at him. You want honesty? Yes. You don't have the emotional insurance. I will survive. I took a breath. You leave more often than delivery drivers. Your friends call and you go. During dinner, during dates, during birthdays, during any private moment that makes your phone jealous. I did not marry the emergency button for rich men with commitment issues. He stared at his hands.
Good.
Let the hands suffer. I thought I was helping. You were them. I thought you understood. I understood too much. That was the problem. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry. It was not enough. But it was not nothing. The drawer buzzed. We both turned toward it. Inside, his phone vibrated like a trapped insect with a trust fund. Let it learn loneliness, I said. Damian looked at me, then did nothing. The phone buzzed again. He still did nothing. My heart, the traitor, took notes. Over the next week, the mind-reading became worse. For him. For me, it became inconveniently entertaining. At first, he pretended it was exhaustion. Then he realized he could only hear me when I was emotional, sarcastic, jealous, or thinking something humiliating about his hands. Unfortunately, I was emotional, sarcastic, jealous, and thinking about his hands far too often. At breakfast, he passed me the honey. His fingers brushed mine. His hands are unfair. That should require licensing. He dropped the spoon. I looked up. Are you all right? Yes. Your spoon disagrees. He picked it up. The spoon is dramatic. At lunch, he stood in the kitchen making pasta because, apparently, turning off his phone had awakened domestic ambition. His sleeves were rolled up. His forearms looked offensive. He looks too handsome to be this annoying. That feels illegal. He turned toward me slowly. I pointed my fork at him. Don't. I didn't say anything. Your face did. At dinner, he wore a gray tie. That tie would look better on the floor. He coughed so hard, he had to drink water. I leaned back. Suspicion had arrived wearing earrings. The next morning I tested him. If you can hear me, blink twice. He blinked once by accident. Coward.
He coughed.
I smiled. That evening, he walked into the sitting room, phone in hand. I looked at him calmly. Damian Reed, if you can hear this, put your phone inside the freezer. He stopped walking. His face went very still. Then, with the solemn dignity of a man marching to his own trial, he turned, walked to the kitchen, opened the freezer, and placed his phone between frozen berries and a box of vanilla ice cream. I jumped up. I knew it. He closed the freezer door. In my defense, The freezer was closer than honesty. You have been listening illegally. I cannot control it. You listen to my Thai thoughts. I wish I hadn't. Liar. Accurate. I folded my arms. What else did you hear? Do you want the full list or the version that preserves my safety? My violent face wears different earrings? Answer. He took a breath. Saint Damian. Customer service for defective billionaires. Emergency toddlers. Phone museum of failed husbands.
The tie.
The hands. The thought about my shoulders during breakfast. I gasped. That last one was sealed. It was loud. You're loud. I was silent. Your cheekbones were loud. His mouth curved. I hated how much I liked fighting with him when he stayed. So, I wrote the marriage emergency policy. I used thick cream stationery because anger deserved good paper. Damian sat across from me at the dining table while I read the terms. No answering friend calls after 9 p.m. No leaving during anniversaries, birthdays, dates, meals, or moments involving Lace. His eyebrows lifted. Yes, Lace, I said. Don't look proud. You are on probation. He nodded. Real emergencies require fire, blood, police, hospital, actual death, or swan attack with photographic proof. All romance disasters must be handled by paid professionals, therapists, wedding planners, security, or their own brains. Damian read the document. This is very detailed. I was angry and had stationery. You included swan attack after the Vale Ballroom incident. We respect birds. He reached for the pen. You're signing? Yes, that easily? I'm trying not to fail twice in the same category.
He signed. His phone rang.
We both stared at it. I said, let it learn loneliness. He turned it off. No, he added, placing it face down, not silent.
Off.
I want credit. I narrowed my eyes. The man was learning. Dangerous. The next day, I visited Vardy's events for lunch and discovered my husband didn't run a company. He ran a luxury asylum with flowers. One assistant whispered that a groom was hiding inside a champagne tower. Another asked whether vows needed a fog machine. A third asked whether swans counted as livestock or decor. Damian sighed. It's not always like this. A man ran across the corridor carrying a ring pillow and shouting, "The dog accepts no responsibility." I looked at my husband. This is not an office. This is an emotional daycare with chandeliers. His mouth twitched. You heard that. I did. Good. It was educational. In the operations room, screens showed floor plans, guest lists, and active disasters. One label read, Red Groom under furniture, alive, embarrassed, bill extra. I took a marker and wrote on the whiteboard, Crisis Routing Board, Real Emergency, Paid Professional needed, Therapist needed, Assistant can handle friend being dramatic. Absolutely not during marriage hours. The room went silent. One assistant raised her hand. Where do swans go? Paid professional needed. Add hazard pay. Damian looked at me as if I had turned sunlight into policy. You see systems quickly. I grew up around rich people. Without systems, they become weather. Don't look at me like that in front of your staff. I'm still angry, not pudding. His folder slipped from his hand and scattered across the floor. I smiled. Which category? An assistant bent to help. Husband being dramatic. The office burst into laughter. I stole half his sandwich. Your people are learning. The friends did not enjoy the new regime. Brandon Cole arrived first, dressed in emergency linen, smelling faintly of panic and expensive cologne. You always help, he told Damian in our sitting room. What changed? Damian stood beside me. I got married. Brandon blinked. You were married before. I was married incorrectly. I looked away quickly. Don't smile. Don't reward basic comprehension with facial applause. Damian glanced at me. I kicked his shoe. Nathaniel came next, complaining that I had changed Damian. You cannot control him, Nathaniel said. If I controlled him, your number would be blocked, framed, and displayed in our hallway as a warning. He looked offended. We are his friends. Then behave like friends, not unpaid emergencies with shoes. Tristan waved a hand. Some people need Damian. Then some people need invoices. I sent them a professional rate card that evening. Emergency wedding extraction. Runaway bride recovery. Mistress chandelier removal. Crying groom retrieval. Cake entrapment negotiation. Swan management fee. Mother-in-law microphone removal. Firework apology damage coordination. Cheekbone lighting crisis consultation. The fees were obscene. Damian read them twice. These are too high. They are emotional damage rates. You charged extra for cake entrapment. Frosting is labor. Brandon called within 10 minutes. Scarlett, this invoice cannot be real. It can be real with interest. You expect us to pay Damian for helping his friends?
No.
I expect you to learn that my husband is not a public utility. Nathaniel shouted in the background. What is a swan management fee? Asked the swan. 2 evenings later, the emergency toddlers arrived with apology gifts and no survival instincts. Brandon brought a cake. Hostile symbolism. Bold. It's an apology cake. The last cake contained a bride. In this house, cake is under suspicion. Nathaniel lifted an envelope. Fireworks vouchers. Remove the explosive stationery from my property. Tristan gestured to a man in black. This is Alio. Good lighting improves conflict resolution. Don't laugh, husband. I am one idiotic apology away from biting an heir. Damian's shoulders shook once. I made all 3 sit like schoolboys. Explain why your romantic disasters outrank my marriage. Brandon looked at Damian. Damian did not rescue him. We never meant disrespect. That was not the question. Nathaniel frowned. Damian has always handled things. Yes, and people once believed bloodletting cured illness. Civilization improved. Tristan said, we thought he liked being needed. Emergency toddlers. Listen carefully. All 3 blinked. Are we the emergency toddlers? Brandon asked. You arrived with cake, fireworks, and a lighting consultant to apologize for abusing my husband's time. Would you prefer counsel of unsupervised rich men? Nathaniel muttered. Emergency toddlers is shorter. Branding matters. I placed down friend access rules. No midnight calls. No cake situations. No emotionally blackmailing Damian. No calling Scarlett controlling because she expects her husband home. All emergencies require proof, payment, and one adult solution attempted before calling. What counts as an adult solution? Tristan asked. Therapy, honesty, paid staff, a nap, or not proposing to the wrong woman. Damian placed the pen before Brandon. My wife is right. Silence. Then they signed. When they left, Damian smiled. I am not offended. Emergency toddlers was accurate. Victoria Draco entered the war at a charity lunch. She was glamorous, sharp-faced, and dressed like a woman who had never been told no by anyone except a locked boutique after closing. She had grown up with Damian's circle and believed that history was ownership if worn with diamonds. She smiled at me across a table of women who enjoyed watching other women bleed politely. Damian has always been the person we rely on. A wife should understand that. A wife does understand. That is why she knows the difference between a husband and a public utility. Her smile thinned. You are insecure.
No, darling.
I am scheduled. A few women coughed into napkins. Victoria leaned closer. If you loved him, you would support his work. I support his work. I do not support billionaires outsourcing emotional puberty to my bedroom. Damian, seated at the men's table nearby, suddenly turned his head. Of course, he heard that. Victoria reached out as if to touch his sleeve when he came over. If she touches his sleeve again, I will remove the sleeve and donate it to fabric science. Damian took one clean step away from Victoria before her fingers landed. I smiled. He looked at me. I lifted my glass. His mouth twitched. The next major disaster came at a gala Damian had organized before the marriage emergency policy, which meant our old life had left one final bomb in a ballroom. The event had everything. Brandon's ex arrived wearing red. Brandon's bride saw her and vanished into the bridal suite. A drunk father grabbed the microphone and began thanking all future daughters-in-law, including the one that got away. Someone's dog ate the ring pillow. Not the ring. Luckily. And a swan escaped from the ornamental pond. Because rich people couldn't just have flowers, no. They needed aggressive water poultry. Victoria saw her chance. She stood near the orchestra and told 3 reporters, loudly enough to season the room, "This is what happens when a wife keeps Damian from fixing things. Scarlett is selfish. She thinks marriage means locking away a man the world needs." I looked at Damian. He looked at the chaos. For 1 second, I saw the old reflex in him. Then he looked at me. I stepped forward and took the microphone from the drunk father. He resisted. I smiled. He surrendered. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. The bride is not missing. She is in the bridal suite reconsidering a man who proposed to his ex last month. Reasonable." The room chuckled. "The dog has the ring pillow, not the ring. The father with the microphone has been downgraded to silent investor. The swan is being handled by someone who chose that career. And my husband is not a communal panic button." The room burst into laughter. Brandon covered his face. Nathaniel looked at the swan, as if asking whether it had a lawyer. Tristan whispered, "She is terrifying." "Only before dessert," I said. Damian took the microphone from me. "No," Victoria called sharply. "She embarrassed you." Damian looked at her, then at the room. "No, she saved the event. More importantly, she saved me from confusing availability with value." The laughter softened into attention. He continued, calm but clear. "From tonight onward, Vardy's events will not accept personal romantic crises after hours. All emergency calls must go through staff. Friends do not get unlimited access. My marriage comes first." Silence, then murmurs, then applause. Uncertain at first, then stronger. I stared at him. Oh no. Boundaries in a suit. I may be in danger. Damian smiled without looking at me. He heard. That night after the gala, Damian took me to a closed private gallery inside the old Vardy's museum. Between 2 marble statues who looked more emotionally available than several heirs I knew, stood a dinner table. On the table sat a glass box. Inside was his phone. A card read, "Phone-free apology date." I stared. "You want applause now?" I was told I should ask for credit when I behave well. By whom? Your face. My face has filed several complaints. For a while, we ate in a quiet that did not hurt. Then he looked at me. "I heard pain in your thoughts that you never said aloud." I set down my fork. "I thought your jokes meant anger." "They did. And hurt. Yes. Why did you never tell me plainly?" I laughed softly. Because waiting quietly felt too much like becoming my mother. My mother had been the polite wife who smiled through forgotten dinners until she became part of the wallpaper. I had promised myself I would never become her. Then I married a man who left so often that my jokes became camouflage. Damian reached across the table, palm up. "I don't want to hear your thoughts because magic allows it. I want you to trust me enough to say them. Dangerous communication is how people become emotionally employed." He smiled. "I accept the position. I am applying for husband privileges." I placed my hand in his. Temporary approval. His thumb brushed my knuckles. I immediately thought something about his hands, the table, and museum security that did not belong in polite society. Damian went still. I narrowed my eyes. Ottoman. He closed his eyes. "I am trying to become furniture." "You are blushing furniture. The worst kind." The romance changed after that. Not instantly. Real marriages are not fixed with 1 microphone and a frightened swan. But Damian began courting me as if he had finally realized his wife was not a guest star in his life. He planned dates with his phone off. He cooked dinner and didn't answer when Nathaniel texted the word urgent 17 times because his yacht apology letter had fallen into the sea. He watched soap operas with me and correctly identified the hidden twin before episode 4. He brought flowers after I thought, not said, that the hallway looked empty. I stared at the vase. "You heard me. You thought loudly. You listen illegally. I brought lilies. Don't distract me with competence." At breakfast, I thought about kissing him while he buttered toast. He dropped the toast. I pointed. Abuse of mind reading. I didn't choose to hear it. You reacted. I'm human. Barely. You fold towels like a hotel inspector. He leaned across the table. Should I pretend to be furniture when I hear embarrassing thoughts?
Yes.
What kind? An ottoman.
Silent.
Useful. Low. He laughed. We made rules. He had to tell me when he heard something important. He could not use mind reading to win arguments. He could not answer romantic thoughts with smug smiles. If he heard embarrassing thoughts, he had to pretend to be furniture. He failed often. Once during dinner, I thought his mouth looked dangerous. He immediately drank water. Ottoman, I said. He lowered his glass. I am trying. You are sitting upright. I am a tall ottoman. Victoria did not accept losing gracefully. Women like Victoria called themselves elegant because dramatic revenge looked better in pearls. Victoria built her scandal like a woman arranging flowers for a funeral she hoped would be mine. She met with Phaedra, a gossip account manager who called slander, narrative positioning, and Mason, a bitter planner from Vardy's events who hated the crisis routing board because it made him use categories instead of running to Damian. They edited clips in a hotel lounge under lamps that clearly had no morals. There I was calling Brandon's cake hostile symbolism.
Cut.
There I was saying my husband was not a public utility.
Cut.
There I was telling the friends they needed invoices.
Cut.
Without context, I looked controlling, jealous, and unfortunately well-dressed. Victoria tapped the screen. Leak the public utility line first. Say she treats Damian like property. Say clients are leaving because she controls him. Mason nodded. She changed the office. Now there are boards. Luckily, Vardy's events had one assistant with a conscience. Mara brought me the full footage, call logs, planned captions, and Victoria's messages. The next morning, Damian stood behind my chair, silent and furious. I will stop it. No, I said. Let her decorate the trap herself. This is not a joke. I know. It's seasoning. You don't need to be attacked for me to act, and I don't need rescuing for you to stand beside me. That stopped him. I looked at Mara. Keep collecting originals, timestamps, call logs, and every message where Victoria tells people to bypass staff and Mason. Damian asked, Mason? Mason gets forms, the kind that make dramatic men respect stationery. Damian picked up the folder. Standing beside you. Good. Try not to look too handsome while holding evidence. It distracts from justice. Damian smiled. That one was allowed. Then justice will survive. By breakfast, Victoria's edited clips had spread through the social circle like perfume in an elevator. The reaction was exactly what I expected from bored rich people with no appetite for context. Loud, dramatic, and allergic to facts. Damian stood behind me while I read the posts over coffee, his face colder than the marble counter. I will crush it now. No, I said. She decorated the trap. It would be rude not to let everyone admire the work first. That sentence worries me. It should. Then we gathered everything. Full footage, after-hours call logs, financial records showing years of unpaid personal crisis work, messages from Victoria encouraging assistants to call Damian during my birthday, our dates, and the anniversary. Clips showing the full context of my so-called snapping, which mostly involved me telling assistants that dessert tables were not legal residences and swans needed professionals. We also found proof that Victoria had staged 2 parts of the gala disaster. She sent Brandon's ex a misleading invitation and told the dog handler to let the dog look natural near the ring pillow. At the final society banquet of the season, Victoria tried to expose me. She wore silver and a face full of tragic civic duty. I do not enjoy saying this, she began on stage, which meant she had practiced. I sat beside Damian. Never trust that sentence, I whispered. He leaned closer. Ottoman, not now. Victoria lifted her chin. Scarlett Vardy's has tried to isolate Damian from everyone who depend on him. She controls his phone, his time, his friendships, and his career. I took one sip of champagne, then stood. Victoria, you accuse me of controlling my husband because I asked grown men to stop calling him at midnight when their feelings learned consequences? That is not control. That is marriage hygiene. The screen behind her changed. Damian had given me the remote. Excellent husband. Improved warranty. The room watched. Full footage, call logs, Victoria's texts, staged disasters, unpaid labor records, and the sheer number of times Damian had left our marriage to rescue men who could have solved their problems with a therapist, a planner, or a nap. Damian stood beside me. I was not trapped by my wife. I was exhausted by people who mistook my patience for ownership. Victoria went pale. I only wanted to protect you. I smiled. From your own boundaries? How generous. Next time, protect a hobby. Her family removed her from future planning committees. The friend group, humiliated by invoices and public math, finally looked ashamed. Her social reputation collapsed, not because she had attacked me, but because she had made everyone see exactly how childish their emergencies had been. Rich people could survive scandal. They hated being made ridiculous. The friends received consequences. Brandon had to finish his own wedding apology without Damian. He accidentally hired 3 wrong professionals, a divorce mediator, a horse trainer, and a children's magician named Mr. Pockets. The bride laughed so hard she forgave him halfway. Progress, apparently, sometimes wore a cape and pulled scarves from a hat. Nathaniel paid for the greenhouse damage from his firework apology and was forced by his mother to attend 6 therapy sessions before being allowed near explosives, yachts, or handwritten letters. Tristan's model girlfriend dumped him publicly after I told her, "You deserve a man with emotional Wi-Fi, not one who treats lighting like a co-parent."
She hugged me.
Tristan sulked for 9 days. Damian sent invoices for years of emergency work as a joke. I told him to send them for real.
He did.
They paid. At dinner, Brandon stood before me like a schoolboy. "I'm sorry, Scarlett. I didn't realize how much we were taking. I accept your apology. I do not accept your ringtone." Nathaniel nodded.
Fair.
Tristan sighed. "Are we allowed to call on birthdays?" Text first. Emergencies, fire, blood, police, hospital, actual death, or hostile swan activity. Brandon lifted one finger. "What about cake?" I looked at him. He lowered the finger. "Understood." Damian planned a second first anniversary night. He called it a repair event. I called it overdue damages. He sent every friend, assistant, relative, and dramatic billionaire a formal notice. Do not call unless there is fire, police, hospital, actual death, or hostile swan activity. Then he locked his phone in a glass box on the nightstand. The label read, "Not tonight." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. He looked pleased with himself. "I am retired from cake rescue. You want applause? I want credit. You may receive a polite nod." I was hoping for anniversary compensation. Submit a request. He stepped closer. I looked up at him in the candlelight, at the man I had chosen, because he seemed safe. Then nearly lost because everyone else thought they owned his calm. He was still elegant, still quiet, still able to fix a ballroom disaster faster than most people found matching shoes. But now his phone was in a box. His eyes were on me. And for once, when my heart spoke, I didn't stop it. "I love him." Damian froze. Not stiffly, softly, as if the thought had touched him somewhere no one else had reached. I realized he had heard. I could have denied it. I had enough pride to build a summer house out of it. Instead, I stood. "I love you." Unfortunately, against several policies. His smile was slow, warm, and absolutely unfair. "I love you, too," he said, deliberately, with revised boundaries. The phone buzzed inside the glass box. We both looked at it. "If that is Brandon," I said, "I am mailing him the cake." Damian checked only the notification preview. "Brandon, ignore me. I am practicing emotional independence." I stared at the message. "Frame it." Damian took my hand. "Later." Finally, later belonged to us. 1 year after the cake bride, Vardy's events became more successful than ever because it charged for chaos. Damian created a new department called Rich People Consequence Management. It included wedding planners, therapists, animal handlers, legal consultants, crisis assistants, and one retired grandmother whose only job was removing microphones from drunk fathers. The friends had professionals now and invoices. Victoria was socially ruined. though she tried to call it spiritual privacy. I was unofficially feared and adored in society. Women sent me secret thank you notes. Assistants sent flowers. One bride sent a cake topper shaped like a swan behind bars. Damian no longer left me for ridiculous disasters. At our winter gala, a groom panicked near the dessert table. A small swan appeared in the courtyard because, apparently, fate had comic timing and someone whispered that a cake door was stuck. Every head turned to Damian.
He looked at me.
I lifted my glass. Don't even breathe in the direction of that cake. He smiled. My wife is closed tonight due to marriage. The room laughed. The swan honked. Brandon immediately stepped away from the cake and called the proper department. I looked at my husband, calm, handsome, dangerous in the quietest way, standing beside me without reaching for anyone else's emergency. I had chosen Damian because I thought he was the safest man on a list of rich disasters. I was wrong. He was not safe. He was dangerous in the quietest way because once he finally learned to choose me, he did it completely. He stopped being everyone's emergency exit and became my husband for real. And as for me, I stopped being the polite, arranged wife waiting across the hall. I became the woman who declared war on a ringtone, invoiced emotionally defective billionaires, defeated a socialite with receipts, and taught a man who could read my mind that hearing me was not enough. He had to listen. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a ridiculously firm line in a relationship to be seen? Or dealt with friends who just couldn't respect boundaries? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.